Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 56. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And I'm Shark Dead.
We got a bonus character today.
That's right. We have 4 of us on today. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be hearing more from Shark Dead as we go. He's going to be a new addition to the team. We'll see how he has his tryouts. We'll see how this goes.
Gotta be on your best behavior.
A little bit here.
Best behavior. No me
circling
too.
The waters.
That's funny. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to dive right into this.
No teaser?
No. This is the teaser. I'm diving into the teaser.
You got me scared there for a minute.
All right, Jameson, you're a little tense today.
I know, right? Relax, bro.
I'm sorry. I was excited.
Well, okay, here we go.
You're valid.
We're working on the blooper reel.
Yeah, right? So I've never been to Norway, but it is on my list of countries that I want to visit. When I was in the military, I actually met a girl from Norway on a bus trip across country when I was heading towards Okinawa, Japan. Now, she and I met and lost touch, but thanks to social media, we caught up years after, which was cool. And, just as a side note for my geek side, she sent me a photo of herself from the fields where they filmed parts of Empire Strikes Back.
Oh,
no
that's
way.
very cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, the fields for Hoth. There's a picture I have of her standing out in this field, and you can see the mountains. You can almost line them up perfectly with the movies. It was amazing. So she stands out in my mind, and we've reconnected. She's married with kids. I'm very happy for her. Now, Norway has one of the lowest crime rates in the entire world and is considered one of the safest places to live. They've had a year where the entire country only had 25 murders.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Right, what's the population?
I did see that it's 5.4 million population for Norway.
Okay, 5.4 million. And there was a year where they only had 25 murders. So again,
wow.
Really impressive.
That's insane.
So the average global murder rate is 6.1 victims for every 100,000 people for the entire planet. Norway stands at 0.5 per every 100,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it is really safe, which is what makes the case we're going to be discussing today all that much more shocking. So on July 22nd, 2011, a man parked a van in front of the executive government building in Oslo, Norway. Now that building, and I'm going to probably butcher this, so I apologize to every Norwegian listener we have, but that building is called the Gjerdingskvartalet. And I hope I got that right, because this is spelled.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
It sounded pretty good to me.
So this man is seen on surveillance footage walking away from the van, and at 3:25 p.m. the van exploded, killing 9 people and injuring 209 others.
Holy crud.
Shit. Oh, that's a big explosion.
Yeah, and sadly...
What the hell was he using?
We'll get into that. But sadly, the explosion was only the beginning of what he had planned for Oslo and for Norway.
You said he exploded.
No, he exploded the van. He walked away from the van.
Oh, misheard you.
It's okay. Then we're going to go through it all, believe me.
All right.
No, so the idiot didn't decide to kill himself in the van.
Oh, he had much bigger plans.
Ugh.
If only it was that easy, Shark Dead.
Yeah, if only.
Very true.
So this is the insane case of Anders Breivik and his domestic terrorist attacks against Norway.
Damn.
This should be good.
So Breivik was born in Oslo on February 13th, 1979, the son of Vanka Bering, a nurse, and Jens Breivik, a civil economist, who worked as a diplomat for the Norwegian embassy in London and later in Paris. He has a maternal half-sister named Elizabeth and 3 paternal half-siblings, Eric, Jan, and Nina. We got to give some background on his mother, Venka Bering. And I have to say, Venka is spelled like the word wench. And if I mispronounce that, I'm sorry.
Wow. I'm proud of you for Googling it and not just saying wench the whole time.
No, I was looking at it. There's no way her name is wench.
There's no way, girl.
Yeah, there was just no way. And it's Venka, which is awesome at the same time, but it looks really weird. So if I accidentally missay it, just call me out on it. So Venka had fled her abusive home when she was 17 and was soon a teenage mother. In her 30s, she became pregnant with Anders and married his father, Jens. During her pregnancy, she moved to London where Jens worked. Even before his birth, Venka developed a disdain for her son.
Oh, that's awful.
Wow.
That sucks.
She claimed he was a nasty child and that he was kicking her from inside the womb on purpose.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, oh, wow.
How fucked up is that?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Talking about getting off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, literally.
Not even on his feet yet.
For
Yeah.
real.
So she wanted to abort him, but by the time she went to the hospital, she had already passed the first trimester and they refused to do it. Psychologists later report that she thought that Breivik was, quote, fundamentally nasty and evil, unquote, and determined to destroy her.
Oh.
Bad vibes here.
She stopped breastfeeding him early because she felt that he was sucking the life out of her.
Ooh. Well, there's definitely some like postpartum and prepartum depression going on here.
Agreed, but there's some, I mean, it's just, this is beyond
There's
that.
some psychological.
No, obviously
yeah,
this is
just-
fucked up, but I do want to highlight the fact that like this is not like that kind of sensation of like feeling like a child is like sucking the life out of you. Like that's like it's more common than you might think.
Okay, that, to me it was a weird statement, but okay, I'll take
Yeah,
your
no,
word
like
for it.
postpartum
That's
depression and
knowledge to
anxiety
me.
is crazy.
Okay, shit,
Wow.
I had no
I
idea.
mean,
It's probably
none of
really
y'all
hard
have
to get
probably
out of,
considered
too.
growing something inside of your body, but it's giving. When I think about it, obviously I don't have kids, but when I think about it, I think of like pregnancy is fucking body horror.
All right, yeah, I mean, I agree. I just never heard it phrased the way she said it, so I thought she
Yeah.
sounded more crazy than she is, apparently.
All right,
Joyous
sorry for
dropping the
rant.
knowledge here.
No, it's good. That's
Yeah.
what we do, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, a year after Breivik's birth, his parents' relationship ended. Venka moved back to Oslo, where she moved into Jens' apartment because he was still living overseas. Neighbors claimed that there were noises of fights and that Venka left her children completely alone for extended periods of time while she was working as a nurse. In 1981, Venka applied for welfare benefits, specifically monetary payments and financial aid. A year or so later, she applied for respite care for her son. She says that she was overwhelmed with him and unable to care for him. She described him as clingy and demanding, a 1-year-old.
That's a baby.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
1-year-old.
it's a kid. It just wants attention and love.
Breivik was then placed in cooperation with the Child Welfare Services with a young couple, essentially state-funded babysitters. This couple later told police that Venka, when bringing him over, at this point he's 2 years old, had asked that, and I kid you not, she asked them if Breivik could be allowed to touch the man's penis because he had
What?
no one to compare himself to in terms of appearance.
Oh
What the
dear
f-
God.
Wow.
Fuck.
Oh no.
She said, quote, "He's only ever seen girl parts," unquote.
He was
Oh.
like 2, right?
He's 2. Yeah, he's 2.
Oh my goodness.
Huh.
So in February of 1983, on the advice of her neighbors, Venka sought help from the National Center for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. She and Breivik were outpatients, and they stayed there during the day for about an entire month. The psychiatric's conclusion of the stay was that Breivik should be placed in foster care and had to be removed from his mother so he could develop normally.
I'm guessing she's probably not going to put up much of a fight for that one. Oh wait, no, because that would screw her over financially.
Jameson, I think that was a good point about the money too. She wants to make sure she's getting her cut too.
Well, hold on. We're going to get there. So these next few points are based on their observations, and they do offer some insight here. according to them, Breivik had little emotional engagement and did not show joy or cry when he was hurt.
Oh, that is very indicative of abuse.
He also made no attempts to play with other children and was extremely clean and became anxious when his toys were not in order.
Oh,
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
No.
Psychologists believe that Venke had punished him and reacted extremely negatively to him for displaying emotions, leading him to become devoid of any visible emotions.
poor thing.
Wow.
Venke also claimed that he was unclean and that she had to constantly care for him.
And Venka came from an abusive household herself, from what I remember.
Yes. She abandoned an abusive household in her teens. Yes.
So she doesn't have her parents there to help her out or anything. Plus, she was abused growing up.
Correct. She probably has no idea how to properly raise children.
No. Oh,
She's
so
doing
sad.
what she knows. It's not right, but it's what she knows.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
psychologists believe that Breivik had developed obsessive-compulsive disorder because of fear of punishment from his mother. He also did not show the normal level of uncleanliness for a 4-year-old, because at this point he's 4, and had no repertoire for how to express his emotions normally. On rare occasions, his long phases of emotional voidness would be interrupted by fits where he would erupt and display extreme uncontrolled emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the staff reported that Venka had told him that she wished he was dead.
What?
Oh my God.
She's telling a 4-year-old she wishes he was dead. And
God fucking damn it. That's so awful.
she knew she was being observed by personnel when she said it.
Oh,
my
that's even more
God.
fucked up.
So at the same time that she's treating him like this, she also bound him to her emotionally. She would alternate between great affection and extreme cruelty from one moment to the next. There were some
No,
nights...
that's not okay.
No. There were some nights that Breivik and his mother would share a bed and make close bodily contact, and the psychiatrist concluded that this was an unacceptable situation for a 4-year-old to be in. They stated, quote, Andres is a victim of his mother's projection of paranoid aggression and sexual fears towards men in general, and that she projects on him her own primitive, aggressive, and sexual fantasies.
Ugh.
Ooh.
Ooh, I don't like the way that sounds.
Not at all. Continuing, they said, all the qualities in men that she regards as dangerous and aggressive, unquote, is basically what she sees in her son, even though he's 4.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
That's just projecting. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So their final conclusion was that this family was in dire need of help and that Andres should be removed from the family and given a better standard of care.
Yeah, sounds about right.
They basically stated that she often provoked him and then oftentimes remained completely ambivalent to anything he did or whenever he actually needed attention. And as a result, he became active and sometimes passive-aggressive and averted making any kind of eye contact or in any kind of real contact with other people. They also said he displayed manic defensive mechanism of restless activity and a feigned deflecting smile. This is a 4-year-old.
Yeah, this is crazy.
He shouldn't have to know how to do any of this.
No.
Correct.
No.
It's so sad. This is just like the textbook, like if there was a textbook on how to deeply fuck up a person.
Exactly. However, the child welfare services did not follow any of their recommendations,
Come on.
and they instead placed him in respite care only on the weekends.
Are you serious?
What?
So when Breivik's father learned of this situation, he filed for full custody.
Wow.
Now, although
Good for him.
Venka had agreed to have him put into respite care, once Jens wanted custody, she demanded that Breivik be put back into her custody full time.
Oh,
What
come
the
on.
fuck
Really?
is wrong with it? Is it just fighting her ex?
Yeah, exactly. She's basically like,
Ugh.
fuck you. So both of them got lawyers involved, and eventually the case was dropped because welfare services thought that they would not be able to provide enough evidence in court to warrant Breivik being taken out of his mother's care.
Ugh. That's so sad.
So during the court proceedings, some of the people from a nursery that had witnessed some of like their interaction came forward and said that he was a happy child and claimed that he didn't do anything wrong, and they felt there was no reason to have him separated from his mother. And that was
Are you serious?
yes. And that was incredible testimony in favor of Venka. Yet Child Welfare Services did write a letter basically saying that he needed to be removed from her.
That's good.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, what about all those findings that said he had no feelings and no feeling of love whatsoever towards anything?
I mean, it was all presented, but unfortunately, the courts did not take him away from his mother. So the Child Welfare Service case was lost, and the agency was represented by a social worker that had had no prior experience of representing this kind of case in court.
And they
Well,
didn't even have
that's
a
problem
backup.
number one.
That's
Nope.
crazy.
Yep, that was it. So it was ruled that the family should be supervised, that he and his mother should be supervised. However, after only 3 visits, that supervision was discontinued.
Oh, come on. Really?
No joke. Breivik was never again put into respite care or foster care.
Oh, that's not okay.
As he grew up and entered high school, a former classmate recalled that Breivik was an intelligent student, physically stronger than others of the same age, and he often took care of people who were bullied. So he at least adjusted a little better, I think. Or at least
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he found a way to relate to people and people who have like been through similar experiences.
or he's faking it.
Right.
Right, like Ted Bundy did. So Breivik lived with his mother and his older half-sister in the west end of Oslo. His mother remarried to an officer in the Norwegian army. Breivik then chose to be confirmed in the Lutheran Church of Norway at the age of 15. Now, I don't know if that part's important, but there are things that are going to come up later, and I included that because it might be.
Interesting.
It would depend
yeah,
on
Also,
your...
he
I want to
chose
see where
to.
that goes.
Yeah, it'll depend on your point of view of things, yes. In his early teen years, he was a prolific graffiti artist and part of the hip-hop community in Oslo West. And at this point, he's becoming very rebellious. He took his graffiti much more serious than everyone else that he knew, all his friends did, and he was caught by police on several occasions. The Child Welfare Services were even notified of this, and he was fined on 2 separate occasions.
Oh, wow.
This is kind of the start of his rebellious criminal streak, although it's graffiti, so it's not that bad.
Right. It's like, who gives a shit about graffiti, to be
Right.
honest?
But it's noted in there because it's part of like his quote-unquote criminal development. I mean,
Right. I guess like it's rebellious nonetheless.
and I guess in Norway it's probably a lot worse because at this time frame that he's doing all this, I mean, I was probably joining the Marine Corps at this point, but when I was a teenager, I spray painted all over the place. I wasn't a graffiti artist. I just defaced shit, you know?
You just
Yeah, I
wanted
was
to watch
thinking
the
when
world
we're all
burn.
younger, we have our rebellious streaks.
Right, and he's in his mid-teens at this point, so it makes sense. And yes, I at that point wanted to watch the world burn. Yes. So according to Breivik's mother, his father ceased contact with him when he was 15, and after he was caught and fined for spraying graffiti, that's when she says all that contact stopped. But
Oh no.
that's all
the
it
last
took,
thing he
really?
needs.
Well, according to Breivik's father, however, it was Breivik who broke off the contact, claiming that he was always willing to see his son despite his quote-unquote destructive activities. Again, who knows what's true at this point because you have 2 different parents with 2 different point of views claiming 2 opposite things.
Did we ever say what year this is? What time
So-
period are we looking at?
So far, we're at 1995 while he's in his teens.
Got you. Okay, right. You did say that. Okay.
Yes, and
I know when you entered the Marine Corps, but our listeners do not.
So at this point, Breivik fell out with his best friends and broke off all contact with the hip-hop community he was such a part of. And he began to start weightlifting and started using steroids.
That can't be good.
That's not good.
No. At this point, he supposedly cared so much about his looks, and he wanted to appear like big and strong and intimidating. He began criticizing his parents for supporting policies of the Norwegian Labour Party, and his mother for being a quote-unquote moderate feminist.
Oh no. He's following the alt-right pipeline. Comes from all.
Well, this is the 90s, maybe early 2000s at this point. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the alt-right definitely didn't exist then.
Oh, I mean, whatever.
But
Whatever
but
it
I
was
see
called then when
right.
I was a baby. I don't know.
Racist.
Racist. Yes.
Yeah, racist,
It's
sexist.
eternal.
Yeah. So Breivik was exempt from conscription to military service from the Norwegian army, probably because of everything he had happened in his childhood with all that the psychologist looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
So it does need to be noted he had no military training for what's coming up.
That's wild.
So in his
Okay, that tracks.
right, absolutely. I guarantee you, if the military knew of half the shit I did, they probably wouldn't have let me in and taught me the things they taught me to do.
For
So-
real. They shouldn't have taught you that shit.
Right, exactly. I worked with explosives when I was in there. Luckily, I don't do any of that shit. And I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Yet.
Something fixed you, I guess.
I guess so. So in his 20s, Breivik worked in customer service, and his coworkers described him as kind to everyone and kind to people from all countries and cultures.
Huh.
Right.
That's
Interesting.
interesting.
Despite the fact that he's behaving otherwise outside of the workplace. But some people did describe him as having an unusually big ego. So,
Okay, all right. Although I find it very interesting that he'd be in customer service because I feel like that wouldn't be something that he would excel at. I feel like he would be awkward.
well, maybe, but if he's good at faking it, then he might actually be
Right.
really good at it.
Okay.
Again,
all right,
go back to Bundy working on a suicide hotline.
Yeah, good point. Yep.
Yeah.
He kind of seems like the type that he like knows what to say, even though he doesn't feel it. So
Right.
he'll just say it.
Right. He's learned to just kind of almost read from a script in his head, I would think. So he might be very good
right.
at customer
He
service.
could fake like, empathy or fake like,
Mhm.
he's really sad about something when he really could care less.
This is what we call masking.
Right. And as
Okay.
a customer service representative, that's what you do all day long. You really don't
So
care.
true.
Yeah, you don't really care that this person's upset with your product. You just have to shut them up, give them what they want, and move on to the next person. So this is a
Mhm.
perfect job for someone like
Honestly, it's good practice.
Yeah, real, right?
Good psychopath practice.
For real.
So at this point, Breivik is reported to have traveled extensively, visiting up to 24 countries. Now,
Wow.
yeah, including Belarus as a tourist in 2005. Now, Norwegian
Okay.
prosecuting authorities claimed that he went to Belarus to meet a woman that he had met on a dating site, and this woman would visit him later in Oslo. Now,
So she actually existed. She wasn't a prince somewhere that wanted money.
no, she actually did exist. But the interesting thing is, this is the only mention of her at all. And I don't know if maybe the relationship didn't work, or if she was someone he was either meeting up with because she influenced what happens next, or if she was just part of the plan. Okay? Because she doesn't come up again,
Interesting.
which I think is really weird, and I almost cut it out, but I kept it because I have a feeling that she is a key piece to this. Because
Is she still alive?
she's unnamed.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but here's why I think this. I don't know if you guys know who Leon Czolgosz is. Leon Czolgosz was the guy who assassinated President McKinley back in the early 1900s. Leon Czolgosz was an anarchist, but he didn't have like a direction. He just knew he was upset at society because he was working for pennies, making things that he couldn't afford to buy for people who had more money than he would ever see in his lifetime.
Okay, Karl Marx.
Right. And he was introduced to a woman who was a writer. Her name was Emma Goldman, and she was famous for such quotes as, "If voting changed anything, they'd make it illegal," and "the most violent element in society is ignorance." But she was a heavy influence on him. It's really highly regarded that she really pushed him to be the one to kill President McKinley. So the reason I bring that up is I wonder what this woman in Belarus was really doing, because the next thing I have to say is that it's at this point that he came up with a 9-year plan to
A
my God.
9-year plan?
Wow.
a 9-year plan to finance what's going to happen in 2011.
girl, I don't even have a 9-year plan for my life.
It's crazy. So literally, he starts this plan. He starts up his own company, a computer programming business, while working at this customer service company. He claimed that this company grew to 6 employees with, quote, several offshore bank accounts, unquote, and that he made his first million kroner, which was roughly $100,000, when he was 24.
Wow.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So he wrote in his manifesto, yes, this is one of those cases with a manifesto.
No, not the manifesto.
So so he wrote in that manifesto that he lost 2 million kroner on stock speculation.
Oh, shit.
But that he still had another 2 million to finance the attacks.
Damn.
He declared that company bankrupt, and Breivik had reportedly breached the law at this point several times. And then he moved back into his mother's home in order to save money.
Damn, that's quite a fucking sacrifice. He really wants to do this shit. If he's willing to move in with his mother.
And it took 9 years of planning. This is what I'm saying. I don't know who this woman was. And maybe she's completely innocent and I'm giving her far more credit than I should be. But I wonder what was really set into motion. Because he doesn't seem like the kind of person who had a yearly plan, let alone a 9-year plan prior to this.
Yeah, like something drove him to do this. And, he was highly motivated, with the 9-year plan, starting a company and everything he did. So something set the wheels in motion.
Correct. And that's why I'm suspicious of Belarus and this woman. So the first set of psychiatrists who later evaluated him said in their report that his mental health started to deteriorate at this stage and he became more withdrawn and isolated. So in May of 2009, he started a farming company called Breivik Geofarm. And he described it as farming sole proprietorship set up to cultivate vegetables, melons, roots, and tubers. Now, I had to look up tubers. They're part of the potato family because I had no idea. I had no idea.
I think that's like tubers is like the name of the family. Like that's potatoes, sweet potatoes, root vegetables.
Okay, I had to look it up. I had no idea. I was like, tubers? It's like a leek?
Tuber? I hardly know her.
That's the best kind of tuber. Sorry. So in 2010, he visited Prague in an attempt to buy illegal weapons. He was unable to obtain any weapons there and decided to use legal channels in Norway instead.
Dang.
He bought one semi-automatic 9mm Glock 34 pistol legally by demonstrating his membership in a pistol club in the police application for a gun license.
What's a semi-automatic pistol?
So it's basically if you hold the trigger down, it shoots 2 to 3 rounds just from one pull.
Oh, okay, I get you.
That's all. And then you have to pull it again and pull it again and pull it. It just slows it down so that you're not emptying the clip in like 2 seconds.
Right.
He also bought a semi-automatic Ruger Mini 14 rifle by possessing a hunting license. So simply having a hunting license allowed him to buy this rifle.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it took? Really? Wow.
I guess like that makes sense as the channel, but like...
Well, here in the U.S...
I don't know what gun shit is like there.
Agreed. And here in the U.S., you can buy a rifle with only your FID card, but if you wanted to buy a pistol, you actually have to wait. There's a waiting period.
Really?
Yes. So
nobody's hunting with a pistol.
No one's hunting with a pistol. No, but they are doing other things with a pistol, which is why there's a waiting period. Although
I think because a pistol is like concealed, right?
Yes, because you can hide it easier. Yeah, and they want you. True. And the waiting period is about calming down and thinking about what you're about to do. I guess.
Yeah, it's very important for sure. Yeah.
So at first, it was believed that Breivik funded his crimes by playing the fantasy role-playing computer game World of Warcraft.
What?
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Now, this has also been denied by many outlets, but in his manifesto, Breivik...
No, not the manifesto again.
It strikes again.
Breivik wrote in detail about playing Call of Duty for what he called training simulations.
Oh, girl.
He told the court in 2012 that he trained for shooting by using the holographic weapons sight in Call of Duty.
Huh.
He claimed it helped
Wow.
him gain target acquisition.
Huh.
Oh God.
Yeah. So we'll blame video games now, I guess.
It's always one of them that they blame.
Right?
And did you say he made money by playing World of Warcraft?
Yeah, he was making money doing that. Competing in tournaments, I would assume. How else do you make money in, online games like that? I don't know.
I don't know
Oh,
about World of
actually,
Warcraft, but there are ways.
Yeah, what you can do is you can create a character in World of Warcraft and like bring him up to level 70 and have him with all his gear and everything, and then you can sell it. There's a lot of people overseas that used to do that because my son plays.
I had no idea you could do something like that.
Oh, there's all sorts. People will pay for all sorts of shit on the internet, man.
No, I believe that. I just was
yeah.
surprised you could sell something through a video game like that. But you know what? That's how out of touch I am with video games because I don't play
There are
video
video
games
games with like full economies. It's crazy.
So Breivik had not declared any income in 2009, and his assets amounted to roughly $72,000. He stated in January of 2010 that his funds were depleting gradually, and by June of 2011, a month before the attacks, he then paid all the outstanding amounts on his credit cards so that he would have access to those for his preparation. Breivik covered up all the windows of his house.
Oh, God.
His former neighbors described him as a city dweller who wore expensive shirts and knew nothing about their rural ways.
That sounds like a very country redneck
Yeah,
statement.
It does, but it's
Yeah.
Norway. But I guess I don't know how to do a Norwegian accent. So you guys, I love that last week Joyus's English accents were hysterical.
Oh my God, they were terrible, but they were really funny.
It was good. So the owner of a local bar who once worked as a profiler of of passengers' body language at the Oslo airport said that there was nothing unusual about Breivik when he was an occasional customer at his bar.
Wow, that's a coincidence.
Yeah, completely calm and collective as he's going about his life.
He's a good actor.
He needed to be, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
In late June, early July of 2011, he moved to the rural area northeast of Oslo, the site of his farm. And again, according to his manifesto, he used the company as a cover to legally obtain large amounts of artificial fertilizer and other chemicals that were used in manufacturing explosives.
I see why he did the farm business now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
9-year plan.
Master plan.
Yep. A farming supplier that sold Breivik all this fertilizer, basically he sold 6 tons of it to him.
Damn.
Wow.
So after Breivik bought a small quantity of explosive primer from an online shop from Poland, his name was passed along to the police security services by Norwegian customs. And they looked into it, but they claimed they found nothing suspicious.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a little weird, and something they regret in hindsight, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The first attack was the car bomb explosion in Oslo at the Gjerdingskvartalet government quarter on the 22nd of July 2011 at exactly 3:25. The bomb was placed inside a van next to the tower block housing of the then Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg. The explosion killed 8 people and injured at least 209 others, 12 of them severely.
Oh my God.
That was just the first attack. So as everyone's responding to this, he travels...
Gives him ample time to get to where he needs to go next.
He travels 2 hours to a summer camp on the island of Utula. The camp was organized by the youth wing of the ruling Norwegian Labour Party. Breivik, dressed in a homemade police uniform, showed false identifications to get on a ferry over to the island.
Holy shit.
The ferry's the only way on and off the island. There's no roads. He was carrying the rifle and the handgun that he had purchased. He also brought drinking water because he knew he would get dry throat from the stress of killing people.
Oh my...
Yep.
So they literally let him go on the ferry with the rifle.
They thought he was a cop.
Wow.
So Breivik's first two victims were Monica Biosi, a camp organizer, and an off-duty police officer named Trond Berntsen. Breivik said about that moment, quote, "My whole body tried to revolt when I took the weapon in my hand. There were 100 voices in my head saying, 'Don't do it, don't do it,'" unquote.
Damn.
Nevertheless, he pointed the gun at Trond's head and pulled the trigger. He then shot Monica as she tried to run away. Then, as they lay on the ground, he shot them both again, twice in the head each. Breivik said the first shots pushed him into a fight or flight mode, and that made it easier for him to continue his killing spree. Now, some of those on the island heard the shot. I did say this was a summer camp. There are hundreds of children on this thing.
Oh no.
They came running out to see what was going on after hearing the shots, and the kids, they believed it was a police officer there, so they relaxed.
Right, they were like, oh, thank God.
Until he opened fire on them.
Oh my God.
When I say children, I should specify this is like 12 and up, so they're mostly teenagers. Not that that makes it much better, but a little better. The teenagers ran in numerous directions, with some of them attempting to hide. Some of them ran into like a little cafe, but he walked in and gunned down the young victims as they pleaded for their lives.
Ugh.
Some of the teenagers were frozen in panic, unable to move, even when Breivik ran out of ammunition and needed to change clips.
Oh, that's just
Wow.
awful.
They didn't move, and he shot them all in the head. He said of this, quote, "They cannot run. They stand totally still. This is something they never show you on TV. It was very strange," unquote.
You really have
Ooh.
no idea what you would do in that situation. You know, you can play it in your head a million times, but when it's going on, what the fuck, especially being a kid.
Right, exactly. You think you know, like you said, and that's why in the military we go through rigorous training to make sure that we are going to respond the way they need us to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
There's one moment where you're standing in a line with your entire squad. I shouldn't say standing. You start off in a prone position. You're laying on your stomach. Everyone has live rounds, and everyone is firing forward. And then you're one by one. They say, "You up, go," and you get up and you run for a little bit, and then you fall. And this is while people behind you are shooting past you.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
And then
Yeah.
you fall, and then the next person has to go, and the next person has to go. And as you're doing this, what the Marine Corps taught us was when you stand up, in your head, you should say, "I'm up, they see me, I'm down." That's as long as you should be up. And let me tell you, after doing that a few times, you start to get good at doing it. You're not thinking about what's passing you. And in this point, they're not trying to shoot you. They have their what's called a field of fire. So
Mm-hmm.
you know you're okay. But in your mind, that's because no one's firing back at you. But that prepares you for that moment in war where someone might actually be shooting at you. But again, I'm up, they see me, I'm down. And that's what you do. You're only up for like 3 seconds at a time. But that's where the training comes in. So when we talk about teenagers sitting there in a cafe and some guy is shooting everyone around them, they're not moving at all makes sense to me. They're terrified.
Yeah. Like there's no escaping.
So
Yeah, I know now they have active shooter drills, you know,
Oh, yeah.
which is
Oh yeah, all the
awful in
time. We are
itself.
trained now, yeah.
yeah,
But I mean, it's back
too-
then, you know, I'm sure, especially with 25 murders a year, you know, that they had no reason to have an active shooter drill.
right. And it's sad that we have to do it, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
know?
Very true.
So Breivik continued his rampage around the island, luring some of the kids out of their hiding places by telling them he was a police officer there
Oh
to
my
protect
God.
them. And of course, when they came out, he gunned them down. His
That's the worst part, you know, thinking that they're safe and having that horror in front of them.
So his goal was to kill every person on that island that day.
Holy fucking shit,
What?
dude.
Yep. He did say he thought about wearing a swastika on his chest for pure fear, but
Oh my
decided
God.
but he decided against it because he didn't want people to think that he was a Nazi.
Well, what?
Yeah,
what?
if you did, that's what everyone would think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
what?
I'm just a non-Nazi shooter.
Right, yes. So one young boy, one teenage boy did try to stop him. As Breivik described it, he comes at me with his hands raised. I push him away with one hand and shoot him with the other. He continued, another man tried to dodge the bullets by moving in a zigzag pattern so that I couldn't shoot him in the head. So I shot him in the body instead. Unquote.
Oh my God. That kid knew what he was doing.
He, for the most part, you just got to be faster, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there's really nothing you can do when you're running either away or towards someone that's shooting at you.
Yeah, there's not much you can do.
So some of the youths ran into the water to try to escape. A Labour Party member named Bjorn Jarl Roberg Larsen said that the kids started to swim in the water in panic and tried to swim towards the mainland, but it's actually quite a distance away. So unfortunately, they weren't going to make it there.
Oh.
That's awful.
A 15-year-old camper named Elise told the press later, quote, he first shot people on the island, and afterwards he started shooting people in the water.
Oh, God.
So even though you think you're safer, no, he just stood there gunning them down in the water. It took 90 minutes for armed police to arrive on the island.
Shit, yeah, if the only
What?
way is on a ferry.
Yep.
Oh my God, that's
90
ridiculous.
minutes. And once they arrived, Breivik surrendered without resistance.
Seriously?
He just surrendered. He just sat down and surrendered. In
Oh my
total,
I
God.
wonder if that's part of his manifesto.
we'll get to
Well,
it.
I guess he did what he wanted to do.
In total, he killed 77 people and injured 32 others.
Holy shit.
Well, do you know how many were on at the school to begin with?
Oh, the estimates were around 600.
Okay.
Okay, well, at least I'm glad he came nowhere near what his goal was.
Right, but that's still a lot of people.
No, it's a horrific. It's yeah.
Among the dead were friends of the Prime Minister and the stepbrother of Norway's crown princess, Meet Marit.
Oh, damn.
The
Oof.
Utoya attack was the deadliest mass shooting by a lone individual at that time.
In Norway or
in the world.
wow.
And it has since been pushed down to number 4 in the world. So, for some perspective here, the worst lone shooter mass shooting in the United States was the Las Vegas shooter with 58 victims, and that's number 6 in the world.
Wow.
Number 5 was the Westgate shopping mall attack in Kenya that killed 67.
Oof.
This attack killed 77.
Wow.
Paris.
This was just absolute how like fucking crazy and shocking in a place where things like this really don't happen.
Never happen. Exactly. Now, number 3 was it was the Paris attacks in 2015 that killed 130 people.
Oof.
Oh, at the Eagles of Death Metal concert.
Yep. The number 2 was the Garissa University College attack in Kenya that killed 148 people.
With a single shooter.
Single shooter. And
Oh,
number
God.
one was the Peshawar school massacre in Pakistan in 2014 that killed 149 people.
Oh.
Oh.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, and I'm for ownership of guns. I am. But if you didn't have guns, you couldn't kill 149 people that quickly.
That's right.
Just saying.
100%.
Just saying. If you take an axe into
100%.
a school, maybe you killed 3 or 4. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, and I'm still for gun ownership. I think it's there for a reason. I'm always worried about a tyrannical government that we're going to have to stop, at some point.
Yep.
So I'm for gun ownership, but there needs to be some checks somewhere. But-
Yeah, I think it also deeply horrifies me how many of these things are specifically at schools,
Crazy. Something weird's happening.
right? And there's like, I don't have an understanding of why that happens or what is the motivator and why that is so often, but it's just like shit. I
And
mean, there's something to be said like, it's a hard question. I
Right.
was
And
like,
it's not just the United States. The number 1 lone shooter was from Pakistan, and that was a
yeah,
school
I didn't
shooting.
know that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what makes, this podcast and podcasts like it so interesting, because we really don't understand what's going on through these people's heads, and just trying to wrap our heads around it.
Right. I mean, I don't glorify it. I don't tell these stories to glorify them.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
You know, and I've said during some of our more torturous episodes, we do it because we're suffering with the victim. If they go through it, we can suffer with them just to get their story out there.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. People need to know.
Exactly. So after his arrest, he was held on the island and interrogated throughout the night before being moved to a holding cell in Oslo. Breivik admitted to his crimes and said that the purpose of the attack was to save Norway and Western Europe from a Muslim takeover.
Come on, dude.
And that the Labour Party had to pay the price for letting down Norway and the Norwegian people.
Come on.
Now, after his arrest, he referred to himself as the greatest monster since Quisling.
Oh, dear God.
What's
Who?
Quisling?
Okay, Quisling. So Vidkun Quisling was a Norwegian military officer and politician that was also a Nazi collaborator.
Ooh.
So his name is synonymous with being a traitor there, the way that Benedict Arnold is in the U.S.
Oh,
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah.
Okay.
So on July 25th, 2011, Breivik was charged with, and this might be my favorite all-time charge. I just want to say this. This is awesome. He was charged with, quote, destabilizing or destroying basic functions of society, unquote.
Oh,
That's a-
that's a
wow.
heavy one.
That's a great one.
That's
That is
incredible.
And he
well
was-
put.
Right? And he was also charged with creating serious fear in the population. It's another
That
good
is
one.
also
Okay.
a good one.
That's interesting.
Both of which are considered acts of terrorism under Norwegian law.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was ordered to be held for 8 weeks, the first 4 of which in solitary confinement, pending further court proceedings. Breivik was kept at the Ila prison after his arrest. There, he had at his disposal, and get ready for this shit, 3 prison cells.
What?
What?
He had 3 cells. One where he could rest, sleep, and watch DVDs and TVs.
Wait. Huh?
Yep. A second cell that was set up for him to use a computer, but he didn't have access to the internet. And the third one had gymnasium equipment.
What does he think he's on vacation? What the
Well, it's
fuck?
like
This
they
is
have
what
a-
the government gave him.
Right. It's like humane prisons.
Yeah, they have much better prisons than we do here. But someone like
And
him,
especially because he's in solitary, like you would always have like, access to like gym equipment, I mean, that's pretty typical.
right?
But he's probably in solitary, so they can't have him using the one that's, for everybody. But I'm sure they have like human rights for prisoners
Yeah, they have much
that like
better,
include
much
that,
better
yeah.
human rights. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess with only 25 murders a year.
Well, that was their best year.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. That's not every year.
Okay.
But still, so few that like
It's-
they don't have like
Yeah.
the insanity of like the the corporate prison system in the US where it's
Right.
like, of course it's shit. They're trying to make money off it. It's for profit.
Right. So
Oh yeah.
So only selected prison staff with special qualifications were allowed to work around him, and the prison management aimed to not let his presence as a high security prisoner affect any of the other inmates in the prison. According to his attorneys, Breivik was curious to learn whether or not his manifesto had taken root in society.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Psychiatrists diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia, concluding that he had developed the disorder over time and was psychotic both when he carried out the attacks and during their observation of him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
If he's psychotic, why did all those voices tell him not to do it?
Well,
The presence of the voices is the psychosis. Yeah.
Right? So, psychiatrists consequently found Breivik to be criminally insane. And on
Well,
January 13th, 2012, after much public pressure, the Oslo District Court ordered that a second panel of experts reevaluate Breivik's mental state.
Jameson, we've heard that one before, right? The
Oh,
reason by
yeah.
insanity.
Yeah, he hates that.
It's the biggest cop out of a freaking.
Well, sometimes
well,
it's
he
true.
does sound insane. I mean, I guess it depends, like what the consequences are at the end of the day. Like, how do they handle that? As long as
True.
he's
Right.
It's
Long as-
about public safety.
Right.
Yeah, most of the time though, it's just a.
Oh yeah, most of the time they're full of shit, but this guy actually sounds fucking crazy.
Yeah, I would agree that this would probably be the one time where it's accurate.
If
Yeah.
he were here in the U.S., this wouldn't really be a discussion. That's the other side of it.
Yeah.
True.
So, if the original diagnosis was upheld by the court, it would mean that Breivik could not be sentenced to prison. The prosecution could instead have requested that he be detained in a psychiatric hospital. On April 10th, 2012, the second psychiatric evaluation was published with the conclusion that Breivik was not psychotic during the attacks, and he was not psychotic during their evaluation.
Oh, interesting.
So instead, they diagnosed antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder.
Interesting.
So in the pre-trial hearing of February 2012, Breivik read a prepared statement demanding to be released and treated as a hero for his, quote, preemptive attack against traitors.
Oh no.
You're kidding, right?
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He accused those traitors of planning cultural genocide.
Oh, please.
Children at a fucking camp?
Yeah.
No, their
okay.
parents. Not
Oh.
them. They were just the victims of his war.
Right. Ugh.
He said, quote, they are committing or planning to commit cultural destruction, including deconstruction of the Norwegian ethnic group and deconstruction of Norwegian culture.
Not the Nazis.
This is the same as ethnic cleansing, unquote.
Ugh.
No, not okay.
Yep. So the criminal trial of Breivik began on April 16th, 2012 in Oslo. And by the August 24th, so it did take 4 months, Breivik was sentenced to preventative detention for a period of 21 years. This is the maximum penalty in Norway. So So he has.
Wow.
This came with a minimum non-parole period of 10 years, which is also the longest minimum sentence available in Norway.
Wow.
How about 85 murders?
So yeah, 77 on the island, plus all the people who died in the bombing. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
They couldn't give him
Crazy.
back to back to back, on each murder.
It's Norway. I don't have too many
different
answers.
countries, different rules.
Wow.
So this sentence allowed the court to continue Breivik's detention indefinitely, 5 years at a time, for as long as the prosecuting authority deemed it necessary in order to protect society. So even though he's up for parole in 10 years, which realistically has already passed, but we'll get to that,
Right.
they can at least continue to extend it out, which we've talked about in a Russian case before.
Mm-hmm.
So while Breivik pleaded not guilty, he also did not appeal this sentence. And on September 8th of that year, the media announced that the verdict was final. So cut ahead a little bit. In January of 2022, he was denied parole,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense.
As he should be.
Right.
Yeah.
After a 3-day trial in a makeshift courtroom, that's where they would decide whether or not to reverse or uphold the district attorney's refusal of parole. So he wanted to fight this. The indictment states that the prosecuting authority does not allow consent of parole because, quote, preventative detention is deemed necessary to protect society, unquote.
Mm-hmm.
At the start of this trial, Breivik gave several Nazi salutes both to the judge and members of the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he really think that was going to help his case? Like, what?
I think he thought he was a hero.
Yes, he did. Breivik testified that he is still a Nazi and will continue to work for white power, but no longer wants to pursue it through violence.
Girl. Ugh.
I love that you just called him a girl.
I call everybody a girl.
That's funny.
It's when you're really on some shit, I'm gonna say girl. The fuck?
And he deserves that, yes.
He does.
So he says that he is trying to register a Nazi political party.
Girl.
Yep, and he apparently is aspiring to be the candidate running for parliament in Norway under the Nazi party.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick out that insanity
Oh,
defense
that's
right now.
All
craziness.
right.
Yeah. Thankfully, he's still in prison to this day.
Good.
All right.
Yes.
Keep him there.
Yeah, but the problem is every 5 years, so in 2027, he's up for parole again. Now, if he keeps behaving the way he is, he's not going to get out. We know
Right.
this. Yeah. But there is an excellent film called July 22 that came out in 2018, and that depicts the attacks in such great detail. Like, it's a film, and it shows like the terror that was going on the island. Like the actors in this film, it's amazing. I highly recommend people watch it because what I told you about the island will not convey to it the way this film will.
Oh.
Yeah, it was
Well,
so
so
good.
that's the date it happened, July 22nd.
Correct.
Trying to imagine in my head how big the island was.
I'm gonna post an image on our socials on Instagram and Facebook of not only the island but how he traveled around the island. But it still won't really give you the scale of it because it's tough to say when you're just looking at like an overview with lines drawn on it. you know?
Yeah.
But it's not
Okay.
a very big island. But it's big enough that some of these kids were able to run and hide. But again, I highly recommend the film because it's going to give you much more of the dramatic like sense, the terror of it. It was so good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. But yeah, that was the case of the Norway massacre, which is really a terrorist attack, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Again, my thought was when I first heard about this case is how did I not know it happened when it happened?
Yeah.
Like, I understand it's another country and the U.S. is terrible about reporting things from other countries, but that should have been everywhere. And I don't remember hearing about it.
Especially considering like the profile of like how prominent it is in the world, like being such a big shooting.
Right. Exactly. And how do
And
you...
how much like I feel like the world is always so focused on when that happens here, with good reason because it happens here every fucking day.
Right. Although in 2011, was it happening? I don't think it was happening as often then, but still, it happened a lot.
Yeah, it was. That was while I was in high school, and it was happening a lot, and we were having active shooter drills. Like that was already a thing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I remember my son was in high school at the time, and I saw it somewhere in the news, and I had mentioned it to him, just because he was in high school at the time, and I was like, wow, this is insane.
Well, it's interesting that you remember it because I don't remember it happening. Crazy. I hope they keep him locked away, and if we have to start letter writing campaigns for him like we do with the douchebags in New Zealand, then we'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I don't think he's getting out.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't think they would ever let him out.
I mean, Norway is very progressive, and if he's going to sit there spouting Nazi garbage, he's not getting out.
No.
Right.
And after what he did, after like how appalling that is and how like that just doesn't happen there. Like, yeah, no way.
No, although there is a segment about this shooting in one of the Michael Moore documentaries. And
Oh, really?
yes, and he talks to the father of one of the children that was killed. And the father even says that he doesn't think this guy deserves the death penalty. And I think that was what Michael Moore was talking about at the time. But to me, that's crazy.
Well, it's like I'm sure we've talked about this before of like death penalty. I don't even feel like it's as big of a punishment. You just get to die.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
like there's a component of suffering.
No, and I agree with you at that point. But I also go back to how much are you paying to keep this person alive?
Oh, 100% that too.
Right. But so, I mean, there's a lot of debate in that area. But this guy was just like, I don't think he would ever forgive this person, but he certainly didn't want him dead, which I just thought was strange because if you killed, I mean, I don't have kids, but if you killed one of my family members or someone I love, I would want you dead.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. But maybe, I mean, other people are definitely better people than I am, I have to say.
Right. And there's always cultural differences in like how people think about death and how people think about punishment and stuff like that.
That's true. And again, Norway, like we've said, it's a beacon of like, it's a great country to live in. It's a beacon for safety.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's their worst attack, and it's like I said, the fourth worst attack in the planet, which is crazy.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Just awful. I mean, it's like an example of how this shit can happen anywhere.
Anywhere. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you again soon. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
I'm Joyous Dead.
And I'm Shark Dead.
All right, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.